Okay, we're live, everybody. Hello. What's up, folks? Oh,
Hey,
damn,
everybody.
Tex, I really need a theme song, don't I? Will you narrate my theme song, Tex?
I'll hook you up. I'll make you an intro.
Cool. Awesome. Anyway, yeah, welcome back, guys. Today I got my buddy here, Tex, and I think the way to introduce tonight's topic is, admittedly, it's not going to be for everyone because today we are here to talk about some goddamn wrestling.
Yes,
All
we
right.
are.
Because sometimes, we all have passion for the cryptid topics and topics of the paranormal and Bigfoot and Dogman. But sometimes we can all admit that shit gets kind of old. So today we're going to talk about a little something different, something to pop ourselves, me and Tex, as they say in the business. And today we are going to talk about some goddamn wrestling. So, Tex, to start us off, why don't you introduce? I'm sure everyone here in the chat already knows who you are. Hey, folks, why don't you introduce your own personal fandom of wrestling? And then we'll go
My
from
own
there.
personal fandom
Yeah.
of wrestling.
Yes. Like your
Man.
personal journey.
Oh,
What has wrestling been in your life?
when I grew up with it. When I was a little kid,
Mhm.
my mom and dad watched Saturday Night Wrestling. Right.
Mm.
I mean, that was one of the things that we did. We all watched Saturday Night Wrestling together. Man, we all had our favorite wrestlers and everything. So I grew up with it. I was in. I loved it. And actually, there was a guy that lived down the street from us because we lived in town at that point, and we moved out to the country a few years after that. But
Hmm.
there was a kid down the street, and he was he wasn't all mentally there. He had some issues, but
Okay.
he would go out, and he was a wrestling fanatic. And I can remember him being out in his front yard, um, doing matches at the top of his voice, calling matches at the
Okay.
top of his voice, you know,
Calling the
and
matches.
like, yeah, calling him like he was a ref,
Whoa.
or an announcer, you know.
Hmm.
So he had these imaginary matches going in his front yard. Wasn't nobody there, but he was calling the matches, color commentated them and stuff like that. And
Damn.
yeah, yeah.
Wait, there was no match going on, and he was just calling
No,
like an invisible match?
yeah, in his front yard.
What? Damn.
Well, I told you the cat
He could
wasn't
at
all
least been
there.
playing with like the toys, like calling that match while he's playing with the toys or something. Jeez.
No, no, no. And
Wow.
I mean, he was an older kid. He was a lot older than I was. He was at that point. He was probably because I was in elementary school when this was going on. He was probably in high school. But
Hmm.
he had some. You know, I don't know. And of course, back then, we didn't know any different. We didn't know. We just we just knew he wasn't right. That's all we knew. We
Hmm.
didn't know exactly what was wrong with him. Um,
But he
but
loved himself some wrestling, huh?
he loved wrestling. I mean, he would be out there. Oh man, it was all the time doing that stuff, all the time.
Damn.
But
You ever try to strike up a conversation with him about wrestling, and then he just like kind of goes off about like all the wrestlers and like,
I don't remember, and I know I had talked to him, but um, everybody kind of stayed away from him because he was
no,
he was
yeah,
odd, you know.
yeah.
Um, but I
He
don't
was a
remember
special
any
child.
particular conversations. But
Hmm.
yeah,
So, because you said you as a kid would sit around with your family watching wrestling,
yeah.
and I guess at this time wrestling was a bigger thing or a different thing than it is today.
Oh yeah.
Now that form,
Kayfabe
that
was
version,
kayfabe
yeah,
was
still alive.
there was no kayfabe that we knew about. A lot. I mean,
Hmm.
there. Don't get me wrong. There were rumblings where it's all fake and all this kind of stuff, but they were so good at it, you know, that the bad guys made you hate them,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. It was. You know, when you saw a heel turn, you know, especially from a good guy to a bad guy, it was just like, oh my
It was
God, what
heartbreaking.
happened? Oh, you know,
Yeah.
it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I
I remember. Yeah.
honestly, I quit. I lost my interest in wrestling when kayfabe died.
Hmm.
I really did.
When did kayfabe die exactly? When would you say it died? Because it kind of gradually died. It didn't. I
It did.
guess.
It died a slow, painful death. Um,
Yeah.
I think it started in the '80s, '90s for sure. You know, um,
Do you blame Vince for killing it?
um, no, because I don't know. I don't know if there is anybody to blame. It just kind of people. So for some reason, to me, people are they're not willing to embrace something that's not quite believable anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just I think it was on a natural course of death, but
I
the
think Vince
nail in the
definitely sped
coffin,
it up.
yeah. But the nail in the
Yeah.
coffin is when because I can remember when they came out and said, "Okay, this is it."
Mhm.
We went from wrestling to entertainment to superstars, and it just Um, but I can also remember thinking when kayfabe went too far,
Okay.
um, because I almost completely stopped watching when, golly, what was his name? Him and what was her name? Rita, the rated R superstar.
Oh, Edge.
Yeah, Edge.
Edge.
When they were doing the whole bedroom scenes and everything, and
Oh,
because
yeah.
I was older, I had kids. I'm like, I don't want my kids watching this crap.
Hmm.
You know? I mean, don't get me wrong, back in the day, it was violent, there was blood and everything, but I didn't have to see somebody faking, getting banged in the middle of the ring either.
Yeah, WWE, they did some things during that time, and we will definitely get there. That wasn't the only thing that
No,
WWE did. There's a whole
no.
list of them. There's a whole list
Yeah,
of them.
yeah.
We'll be getting there, folks. Don't worry. Um, so wait, so do you remember like your parents who which wrestlers they were into? Like, is this
Oh,
like the Gorgeous
absolutely.
George era? Okay.
Well, now Gorgeous George was a little bit before my time.
Okay.
I mean, he was still lurking around, but he wasn't
Mhm.
one of the, you know, um, not because the Gorgeous that I remember was Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin.
Okay.
Okay, that's who I remember. So
I know who he is. Yeah.
Gorgeous George was before my time,
Hmm.
but
So who are your parents into?
my mother's favorite wrestler, and I always thought this was funny. My mom's favorite wrestler was I can't went blank because he was one of my favorites too. Oh, why are you asking me all these names? Oh my gosh!
Try to imagine someone who he had a match with.
Now he okay. He got killed in Puerto Rico.
Oh, Bruiser Brody.
Bruiser Brody. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bruiser Brody was my mom's favorite.
Really? That guy?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Now my dad's favorite was Fritz Von Erich,
Hmm.
and see Fritz um, originally was a bad guy. He was I mean he played the whole Nazi Germany thing uh, when he was first you know just him you know
Yeah.
yeah Fritz didn't turn good guy till I think his sons got into it and everything but yeah
Oh, you're
man
talking about the father.
Yeah,
See,
Fritz.
I didn't
Yeah.
know much about the father. Okay, so Tex, you got to fill me in because because Randy was talking last time I had Randy on. He was talking about how for him the most influential wrestlers in his fandom were the Von Erichs, and for a lot of Texans, the Von Erichs are pretty synonymous with Texans, right?
Oh yeah.
My only
Oh yeah.
familiarity with the Von Erichs for myself was actually Kerry when he was in the WWF,
Yeah.
as the
Texas
Texas
Tornado.
Tornado. But I wasn't really familiar with the rest of the family. So you're gonna have to fill me and the people in the chat, people who might not be wrestling fans,
All right.
tell them the story, the legacy of the Von Erich family.
Okay, so like I said, Fritz was the father, right? And he started out,
Mhm.
he was a bad guy, and that's where the whole Fritz von Erich name came from. He was German, right?
Yeah.
So because their real name was Atkinson, Atkinson, Atkinson,
Hmm.
Atkinson. But anyway, y'all know what
Was
I'm
the
saying.
dad really German though, or was he like a
No,
full-blooded
no, no.
Texan?
He may have had some German in him, I'm sure, but
Mhm.
he wasn't. He didn't like have an accent or nothing, a true accent. Hell, he was from Lake Dallas, Texas. He's born in
Oh, so
Jewett,
they were
Texas.
just so they were Texans through and through, pretending to be Germans.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Kayfabe. It was kayfabe.
Kayfabe, kayfabe, yeah.
Well, then see, Fritz got where he owned the territory down here,
Hmm.
and so he was running things, and then his son started wrestling and everything. Well, then you had his sons, which were the main ones, were um, Kevin, Mike, Kerry, and Kevin, Mike, Kevin, and yeah, there was three of the yeah, three of the main ones. It was Kevin, Mike, and Kerry.
Carrie.
Okay,
Okay.
and there were some that they tried to bring them in, but they didn't fly. Now the thing about it is, a lot of people absolutely. Um, no, thank you, Jose. It's a lot of people don't realize what the Von Erich family has been through because Kevin
Yeah.
is the only surviving member that I know of, and their oldest brother, the firstborn, this is kind of what kicked everything off as far as the Von Erich family curse. Look it up; it's crazy,
It's pretty
but
crazy.
it is. Their their first. Let's see. Let me look.
Oh, and for those of you who might get interested and are curious by our conversation, if you want to know more about the Von Erich family and the curse and the tragedies that they lived through, look up Dark Side of the Ring, the Von
Oh
Erichs.
yeah,
It's a pretty comprehensive look at like their lives, and it's filmed for people who aren't familiar with wrestling, so you'll see what we mean. You'll see what we mean.
yeah. Now, because his first son was Jack Barton Atkinson Jr. Okay, that was
Mhm.
his full name, and he was born in 1952. He died at the age of 6 when they were living up in Niagara Falls, New York.
Oh, the first son
On
died. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
Kevin was the
What
first
happened
son.
was what happened was he stepped on a trailer tongue that was for some reason had electricity going to it. It was shorted out or something. And when he fell and he fell into a melting a snow that had melted face first and he drowned.
Whoa.
Yeah. So but then Kevin was the next in line and he was he Kevin was my favorite as far as the Von Erichs goes. Okay. He wrestled barefooted, which was different. Most of the people that you saw wrestle barefooted were Samoans or, you know, Asians or Pacific, though what like Jimmy Fly Superfly Jimmy Snuka wrestled
Yeah.
barefooted,
Or the
you
Great
know.
Muda.
Yeah, the great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and see, I remember the Great Kabuki. The
Yeah.
Great Kabuki was freaking awesome. He was cool too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you had Kevin. He was next in line, and then you had Mike, and then you had Kerry. Well, Mike, and like I said, Kevin is still alive today. In fact, his son and his daughter wrestled for a while, and I think they're both retired now. But Mike, his death is really surrounded in mystery because he died in Japan, and
He
some,
died
I
in his
mean,
hotel room, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I think
some
I
people,
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, some people say it was toxic shock syndrome. Of course, drugs are always you know, a
Or just
you know what?
overall health problems.
I was telling y'all wrong. I am so sorry. It was David that died. David that died. And I don't know why I kept calling him Mike.
Oh, David was the
Mi-
one that died at 6.
No, no, David was the guy that died. He was the one
He was the
that
one that
died
died in
in
Japan.
yeah.
Okay.
Um
All right.
let's see I'm curious now. Um Now see, I didn't know this. I'm going to tell y'all here something else again here. But he died in 1984 in Tokyo. Um, the U.S. Embassy's death report says he died of acute enteritis.
What does
Um,
that mean?
that's a good question. But now Ric Flair wrote in his autobiography that everyone in wrestling believes it was a drug overdose that really killed him. So, oops. But enteritis is an inflammation of the small intestine caused by food or contaminated drink. But yeah,
That sounds like a real bad way to go.
yeah, it does. It does
Yeah.
not sound pleasant at all. Now,
No.
Carrie, or well, I was going to tell you all about. We're talking about the family curse here, and I didn't even know
Mhm.
this. But when David got married to his first wife, they had a daughter, and it died. I didn't know that. So yeah, that was so
Hmm.
the curse continues. Now Carrie was
Kerry
Carrie
is the
is
one that yeah, he's the
had the
one that made it into
motorcycle
the
wreck.
WWF. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and he had a motorcycle wreck and was missing most of his foot, if not all of it. He was wrestling with prosthetic for a long time. He was there was drugs involved, um, and then he took his own life. He shot himself in the chest with a 44 caliber pistol.
Damn.
So yeah, but and Mike and Chris, they wrestled for a while. Um, Now there is a third generation of Von Erichs. Ross Von Erich and Marshall Von Erich and Lacey Von Erich. Um, let's see, Ross is Kevin's son. He's named after David and Mike. His real name was David Michael Ross.
Hmm.
He was trained by Kevin and Harley Race, which is cool. I used to love Harley Race too. Marshall was named after his father, Kevin, His name was Kevin Marshall Atkinson. He was trained by Kevin and Harley Race also at the same place. Now Lacey, she was born in 1986. So I mean, to me that was, a few years after I got out. A few years after I got out of high school. Now she wrestled on TNA, and she held the Knockouts Championship for a while, and she retired in 2010. But yeah, Lacey Von Erich, and her real name is Lacey Dawn Atkinson. But
When you were watching the Von Erichs, like for you as a fan, were they each doing their own singles, or were they like on as a faction, kind of like as brothers, like the Young Bucks or the Hardys?
yeah, they were. I mean, it was a family affair.
Hmm.
They were famous for wrestling the Freebirds. There was an ongoing
Mm.
rivalry for a long, long time, and everybody absolutely loved it.
So were they more
Um,
of a tag team or a faction?
I mean, they did it all. They would wrestle
Hmm.
6-man tag team matches, regular tag team matches, solo matches. They did it. They did everything. You know, but the thing about it is, it was kind of like a faction. Um, you see, pick on one, you got to pick on all those. They all rush out of the dressing room and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, is that type of thing. Oh, we're going to be ringside, or they pull a fast one and get one of the brothers as a guest referee. Oh yeah, see, none of this
Yeah.
stuff is new that they're doing.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
has been played over, you know, the better part of probably 100 years. Through all this.
It's hard to come up with anything new in wrestling unless you come up with like weird angles, right? That's
Right.
why they have to come up
I
with like
think,
supernatural angles now.
yeah, well, and that leads you right into the Undertaker, which
Yeah.
Undertaker, I got to tell you, is probably my all-time favorite above
He's
everything,
up there for me as well.
because he is not only um, he was not only a great wrestler, he took kayfabe to the extreme. He never broke character until just 10 years ago, maybe.
Yep.
Um, and it's when you
I
hear
remember.
other wrestlers talk about him and hear about other people meeting him. He's Kane's the same way, nice guy, and everything, down to earth, mentors, always mentored the young wrestlers and that type of thing. So I got a lot of respect for the man, and I hate that they. I was very, very unhappy when they let his streak go, and even more unhappy on who broke it.
Oh, Brock.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
let me
not a
ask you
fan.
this: Who, in your opinion, who should have broken the streak
Nobody.
if it had to be broken? If it had to be broken, if Vince came up to you and said, "Tex, we got to break the streak, but you get to decide who it is. It's got to be broken, but you decide."
Kane.
That would be a good choice. That would be a good choice. Kane. I was going to say John Cena, but I think I like your choice better.
No, no, no. Don't get me wrong.
I love
John
John
Cena is
Cena.
a, John Cena is one. He's a good guy. Two,
Hmm.
he an absolute phenomenal athlete. For the longest time, he was the strong. You see all these bigger guys that look bigger than him, like Batista and all this kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
John Cena was the strongest man in the locker room for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Very long time. And but
Did you ever
it's
see that? Do you ever see the interview with Big Show, like the shoot interview, where they asked Big Show, of all the men you've wrestled with and all the men who've like lifted you, who, in your
yeah,
opinion, was the strongest at like manipulating your body? Big Show was like number one. Well, it was two choices actually. He said John Cena and Kane.
yeah,
But they're like, but what about Brock Lesnar? And he was like, well, Brock Lesnar, he's got that explosive power, But
Right.
John Cena, when he's carrying you, it's like solid, like you're not going anywhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That boy was he's strong. He is very strong.
Yeah.
He's not much of an action. He's not much of an action hero, though. um,
No, man, I like John Cena, man. I really do. You know what it was? Because he also had really good promos.
he did, and
He
you
had real
talk
good
about coming
promos.
up with something original. Thugonomics was original.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
he
I
was about
mean,
to get
it was
fired before he came up with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, he played on the whole Eminem thing,
Mhm.
and it worked for him because he was good at it. And
Yeah.
that's not something freestyle rapping and stuff. That's not something you just oh, I'm going to do this. No, no, no. There's but I used to love his first theme song that he had that it was him singing. I can't remember
Yeah.
what it was, but and I love the whole "you can't see me" thing. He did a lot that was really really cool. One of the best matches that I ever saw was a street fight with him and Carlito.
Really? I'm gonna have to look that
Yes,
one up. Carlito and John
that was
Cena's street fight, huh?
I believe it was
Hmm.
Carlito.
I'm gonna have to
And
look that
see,
one
I
up.
know Carlito was another one of those fellas that um he played such a great bad guy. He
Wait,
just
Tex, now I
made you
now
just made you
now you made
freaking
me curious.
can't
Sorry.
stand him.
Yeah. Now you got me real curious, Tex. When you said earlier that you didn't like the fact that Undertaker's streak was broken. By the way, for those of you who don't know, listening at home, so the Undertaker went on this undefeated streak for like every year at WrestleMania. Every year at WrestleMania, he competed and he won. So he was like undefeated at WrestleMania for like how
But
how long
21
was the
and 0,
streak?
I think it was.
Yeah. Until it was finally ended by Brock Lesnar. And you said that you didn't like the fact that it ended at all, but you especially didn't like the fact that it was ended by Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
I'm real curious now. Why do you not like the fact that it was Brock Lesnar?
Because Brock Lesnar, and it's the same complaint that so many people have with him. He was a part-time superstar. You know, that was back when he would make like one or two appearances a year. He was clickbait.
Oh,
That's all he was.
okay. This is when he was doing the part-time.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's like,
If he'd been regular roster, it would have been different.
yeah, yeah. If he'd
Yeah.
had an ongoing feud and all this kind of stuff, and it built it up, and all this, but it kind of came out of the blue. You know,
Hmm.
from what I remember, and not only that, it's just now to hear. But I will say this: now Undertaker was a company man. Him and Vince were tight.
Yeah.
Um, and from what I heard from Undertaker, they had a long conversation about it, and Undertaker was ready to retire. You know, and I think it was Undertaker that actually decided to end the streak. He was
And
kind of
apparently,
they did it kind of a
I also
passing the torch to Brock Lesnar is what they did.
heard in some shoot interviews that when they first presented the idea of ending the streak to Brock Lesnar actually protested. He's
Yeah,
like, I don't want to be the one to do that. No,
yeah. You want to be
he was
hated? Do
complaining
this.
about it. Yeah, he was like complaining about it. He's like, I don't want to end a streak. It
Yeah,
shouldn't be me. He had a problem with it ending. It's like it shouldn't end. What are you doing?
and and I did not like Brock Lesnar for a long, long time. Not just as a wrestler, just I didn't like him.
Oh, was it
And
because of the stuff he did in UFC?
no, it was before then. I just didn't like him. There was just something about
Oh,
him that rubbed me the wrong way.
really?
Um, yeah, but then I found out more about him,
Hmm.
and he's got an attitude. He doesn't like people. He's very socially awkward. He's it's not that he doesn't like people. That's not the right way to put it. He he doesn't do well around people. He doesn't do well with believe it or not, crowds.
Yeah, he sounds like a
And a
guy with
lot
a
of
lot of
people think
social anxiety.
that's exactly it. And
Yeah.
he doesn't. And a lot of people they'll call him an asshole because you know he's kind of blew them off in airports and blah 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 and all that
Mm,
kind of stuff. And but it's really no fault of his own type thing.
yeah.
Um,
See,
but
it's hard because there's all those stories and there's the way he comes off publicly, but
yeah,
then there are all these long form podcasts that he's been on, because if you
right,
ever wanna see what Brock Lesnar's actually like to, like, have a conversation with, listen to his, podcast series he did with Stone Cold Steve Austin,
yeah,
where they're just talking about, like, hunting and shit, and
yeah,
then, like, just, like, growing up in the country, and you could tell, like, all really Brock wants to do is just talk about hunting and going out in the country and
yeah. But
being a
he
farmer.
yeah he doesn't do well around
Yeah,
people. He's got a
yeah.
lot of social anxiety, and not everybody's a people person. It's weird that he got into the business that he did,
Hmm.
but he was such a fan. And I'll tell you what, you want to watch somebody wrestle, watch his college videos or watch
Oh,
his
Brock Lesnar?
high school videos.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that and it's just like Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was phenomenal, phenomenal.
Yeah.
He was one of my favorites for a while. You know, and
I love Kurt Angle.
I just thought, you know, I mean, the man won a gold medal with a broken neck. Come on, that's tough.
Come on, folks. Come on, folks. Tex, okay,
I
now
mean,
I gotta start asking you this now because we're about 30 minutes in. You gotta share with us, Tex, what we were talking about backstage, about the time where you almost dipped your toe in the world of wrestling. I remember one time backstage in another show you brought it up. I was
yeah.
like, "Oh, no, we gotta talk about this in a podcast. I need to ask you.
Okay.
I need to interview you. What happened?
All
What
right. So
happened,
this is
Tex?
how it
How
went
wait,
down.
first of all, how old were you? How old were you?
I was 22 or 23.
And what did a 22 or 23-year-old Tex look like back then?
About 225 pounds cut. I had um had a 31-inch waist, a 48-inch chest, and 18-inch arms, and was benching 400 pounds.
Jeez.
Okay. I haven't always been a lump of potatoes over here, but but that's neither
Time
here nor
gets
there.
us
Really. I mean,
all.
well, I guess
Yeah.
it is part of the
I
story,
I
but
just want you to paint the picture of the Tex, the 22-year-old Tex in this story, so I get the mental image of this story as it unfolds to me.
yeah, I just got out of the
Did you have the
military.
beard? Did you have the beard?
No, I was straight fresh out of the military,
Oh.
so I had nothing but a mustache going and sporting a flat top because I had hair. But
Mm.
but which is interesting because before I went in the army, I had a mullet and a beard. I either sported a beard, not like this, but a short crop beard, or a Fu Manchu.
I should have asked you to bring up a photo of
Oh no,
22-year-old Tex. That would've
oh
been
no,
all what? No? No? Hell no?
no.
Oh, man. Kinda curious now. Anyway, okay, so tell me how the story goes. So what
But
happened?
okay,
How
so
do you almost
I went. My sister was married to a guy that was in the Air Force. Okay, and Fourth of July they were having a big deal over at the Air Force Base over here in Carswell. Well, it used to be Carswell Air Force Base. It's Lockheed now. And um, they asked me if I wanted to go, and they were having wrestling matches, and I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going. Kevin Von Erich and Iceman were wrestling each other. That's the only reason
Hmm,
I wanted to. It was an outside event, okay, and the whole thing was crazy. And I may or may not have been drinking just a little bit,
hmm.
and
Fresh out the
so I'm
military,
kind
so you're ready to
of,
party.
and I worked myself down. Um, and I'm wearing I think I was wearing like a tank top. I mean, jeans and you know, trying to pick up some ladies, that type of thing. But anyway, I worked myself down to ringside. And I'm standing there and I'm talking smack, I mean, to the wrestlers and everything, yelling shit and all this kind of stuff. And this guy standing next to me, I got so carried away that the guy next to me goes, "How much they pay you to do this?" I'm like, "What are you talking about, man? They don't pay me to do that. I'm not part of this." Yeah, you are. No, I'm not. Really, I swear. So
Oh.
the matches go on and the matches go on. Now there was a mixed tag team. Now they were wrestling, and somebody got slung into the women were on the outside, and the guys. Somebody got slung into the corner into the ring post that was right by where I was standing. Me and I was standing right next to the announcer, and or no manager. I'm sorry, and Kevin's manager. No, it was he didn't. No, he was
Kevin's
an
manager.
announcer. No, he was an
Oh,
announcer.
this
But
was
he
during
also
the Von Erich match.
yeah. Well, no, this was
Oh,
before the Von Erich match because
okay.
they were the main for this stuff. But anyway, there was a tag team match going on, and one of them got slung into the ring post, and the ring post broke off of the ring, and when it fell, it cracked the one of the female wrestlers in the head, and I mean cold cocked her and busted her head open right there in
Whoa.
front of me. And it was this was not fake. I'll guarantee you this. So what they had to do, they couldn't repair it. So they had to take all the ring post and the ropes down. And Kevin and Iceman had to wrestle with no ropes, no ring post or anything. So, and they were, I found out a little later, they were not happy about that. Not happy at
Hmm,
all. Because
hmm.
that changes a lot of what you do in the ring.
Yeah.
Now, um,
Did
so
they pull off
anyway,
the match though? Did they? Do you think they did an all right
oh,
job given?
they did as best as they could. They really did.
Hmm.
You know, um, it had to slip outside more than I think they had worked out. You know, but um, they pulled it off. You know, it could have been a
I would
lot
have
better,
just
but
gone
they
into
pulled it
like
off.
chain wrestling at that point, right? That's what you do. They
Right.
did more chain wrestling.
Um, what do you mean chain wrestling?
Chain wrestling where like, in the beginning of like those old school matches, it would just be lockups into reversals, but there no
Oh yeah,
strikes.
yeah. Well, see, but the thing about it is they couldn't they couldn't run the ropes. They couldn't bounce each other off. They couldn't. They didn't. They weren't there.
Yeah.
So they did a lot of technical stuff in the ring, but they did also some brawling on the outside,
Hmm.
because they still had that part of it and the chairs and all that kind of stuff they could use. So, I mean, it was a good match. Don't get me wrong. But anyway, so I'm standing there with this guy, and praise be to Pope, Cho, and Dogman. Um, so Robert Moore
The
said.
Church of Dog
So
Man.
anyway, they they get done with they're almost done with the match, and the guy turns to me, the announcer guy, and he says, "Have you ever thought about getting into wrestling?" I said, "Well, who, what American blood, hot red blooded American boy hasn't, And he says, "I tell you what." He goes, "I think you got what you got. You got the skills. You got the look." He goes, "Why don't you come back to the dressing room with me, and I'll introduce you to Kevin and Iceman."
Really?
And I'm like, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah," you know.
Hell yeah.
So he goes, "I'll tell you what." He goes, and it was kind of a test for me because he goes, "When the match ends and we head back, I want you to split the crowd for me. You're my bodyguard if anybody asks." I'm like, okay. So when the match ends and I start splitting the crowd for this guy, the guy that had talked to me earlier that was convinced that I was part of this, and I was telling him I wasn't, he's jumping up and down. "I told you, you son of a bitch, you were part of this. I told you." And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? You know? So it was funny. I was laughing, shaking my head, moving the crowd. But we got back to the dressing room, and Kevin and Iceman were pissed. They were pissed. And Derek
About the
says he got
ring.
he got F5 by Brock Lesnar. got up after a 2 count. But
You're gonna have to show me the video evidence.
but we get back there and they were pissed. They were feeling, one, because the match, was screwed up,
Mm-hmm.
and two, they didn't like each other for real, and I didn't know that.
Mm.
They did not like each other.
Mm.
So they were really in no mood to talk, either
Yeah.
one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But he goes, here, let me let me go talk to Iceman. So he walks over. This guy walks over, and and I mean, literally, Iceman was just huffing and puffing and
Tell
pacing
me,
back and
who was
forth.
the Iceman? That name is unfamiliar to me.
Iceman King Parsons.
Okay.
Iceman King Parsons.
He was the heel.
Well, he went back and forth. He was part of the Von Erich clan for a while. He wrestled with them, and
Mm.
then
So they had some kind of weird personal beef going on then, probably at that point.
I guess I just
Yeah.
he said they didn't like each other. That's all I know. But anyway, he went back
Mm.
there and he talked with Iceman a few minutes, and then he came back and he said, you know, he said, "Yeah, go back there and wave me back." And I walked back there, and Iceman goes to digging in his gear bag and goes, "Here, man, give me a call if you're interested." And he gave me his card for his wrestling school, and so that was about it on that. I didn't want to geek out and ask him for autographs or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But
You were coming up to
so
him
we
as a
said our
potential student.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we said our goodbyes, and I thanked him and everything, and I left. Well, when I called about the school, it was $5,000. I didn't have that kind of money then, you know,
Hmm.
and so I never did it.
Let me ask you:
But
do you know of any notable wrestlers that eventually wound up coming out of that school, or anyone who was trained by him?
not off the top of my head, no. I'm sure
But
there
there
are.
were some. Hmm.
Oh well, I'm sure. You know,
Hmm.
but most of your wrestlers do have a wrestling school, or at least part of
Yeah,
them
a
do.
lot of them do. A lot of them do.
But yeah,
I wonder though, when you told me that story, when you were in there with it was Kevin Von Erich at the time with
uh-huh.
Iceman.
Yep.
What was going through your head? Were you more starstruck? You're like, oh my god, it's Kevin Von Erich, and I'm in the same room with him. Like I grew up watching this guy, and here he is, and I'm in the same room with him. Like, were you more starstruck, or were you more like, oh man, they're pissed, and I'm here? And what was like
Both.
what was the thought
It
process going
it
on
was
in your brain?
both because I was like, oh my god, Kevin Von Erich, and
Yeah.
but then it
Plus,
was the
you're also
whole
drunk.
huh?
Yeah. Plus, you were
Yeah.
also drinking, I'm imagining,
Oh
as
yeah,
well, because
shit.
you
I
were
was
there to
3 sheets to
party.
the wind, brother.
Yeah.
I was 3 sheets to the wind. I've been drinking beer all day long. Hey,
Hmm.
I'll be right back.
All right.
Be right back. Sorry, folks.
Oh, it's all good. I'd had to have my own little emergency as well. My dog started barking because my dog does that because he doesn't respect the fact that I have a podcast. He'll be right next to me, and all of a sudden, he'll just decide to just bark and go buck wild because my dog doesn't care about podcasting. Yeah, I've been hearing rumors, Derek, about CM Punk returning to WWE. I haven't actually been following wrestling that much lately. I did a few years ago. But because it's kind of hard when you don't have cable, I would because I used to travel for work a lot, and so I would spend a lot of nights at like motels and hotels, and for all these work trips, and that would be the only time that I could watch like SmackDown or Raw or AEW. And yeah, I would watch wrestling all the time if I could. Hey there, Dogman UK, the skeptical researcher. But yeah, I used to, you know what I was really into actually? For me, when I got, so I was
Bigfoot
big
porn.
into pro wrestling as a kid. I was big into the Attitude Era. I stopped watching wrestling after the Attitude Era. When it started going towards ruthless aggression, that's when I really stopped watching wrestling, right? And then years later, I got back into wrestling because of New Japan and like the Bullet Club. And then once I got back into that, I started getting into like more the indie stuff. This is when the UK wrestling scene was still big. Because I was liking a lot of the indie wrestling stuff, like the weird wrestling, like Lucha Underground,
Right.
right? And then I started eventually getting back into WWE and then watching AEW because that was right before AEW first came out.
You know, I have not watched a full episode of AEW.
I mean, it was great in the beginning. The first year, they had some
Yeah.
real banger episodes. It was just so much better than Raw or SmackDown at the time. So much better.
I think
But
political correctness killed a lot of what makes wrestling good.
yeah, yeah, wrestling is not supposed to be politically correct. Hell no.
You know, when you go, oh well, you can't get color. You know, and if you don't know what that means, folks, when they talk about getting color, it means you can't bleed. So, I mean, they got to a point to it at some point. I think they quit doing it, but at one point they would. I remember them cutting away from matches when they got bloody. And one I saw, I can't remember what show it was, but I remember going to, and it may have been a documentary I was watching or something. But I remember watching a wrestling match, and they got color on somebody, and they changed the whole thing to black and white. What?
They do that in WWE.
Maybe that's where I
I,
saw it.
I see. Yeah, they do that in WWE. I see them do that in AEW. They have to. It's like the network, whatever. They have
Yeah,
to follow the
I think it's
guidelines.
crazy, but you know, it's just
What about stuff like, okay, Tex, let me ask you this one. Okay, let's play a word association game, okay?
all right,
I'm going to bring up a word. You give me your full thoughts and opinions, okay?
all right.
ECW.
What?
ECW.
ECW?
ECW. Yeah.
You know, I enjoyed ECW because it was so brutal there for a while,
It
but
was pretty
then it
brutal.
just yeah, when it first started, oh yeah, but
Hey, it's Rob.
there's Rob in here with us. Hey, Robbie.
Yeah.
Um, but after a while, it just got old hat, and it was like,
Hmm.
because I
They
really
did
couldn't
have some
get
good
behind any.
matches.
They did, but I really couldn't get
Yeah.
behind anybody that was my grandson. Really couldn't get behind any of the wrestlers. Um,
Hmm.
it was because they never stayed there long. The ones that I liked, they were bouncing back and forth to WWE all the freaking time. You know,
Okay.
TNA, I could never. I'm sorry. I'm jumping tracks here. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm going to bring up a name now because there
Okay.
are some non-wrestling fans. Because I don't think Rob's a wrestling fan, so I'm going to bring up a name that even non-wrestling fans will recognize, and you give me your
Okay.
honest to God thoughts. Okay, Hulk
Okay.
Hogan.
Was fantastic back in the day. I was a Hulk fan.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, but I didn't like it. I I mean now I could care less about it. I really could. But once he did the whole reality show, honestly, once he went with the NWO, I really didn't like it anymore.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because
I thought that was the most interesting he'd been in years, though,
but the
because his
thing
act
about
was
it
getting
is,
kind of stale.
well, okay, but this is the dad coming out in me, okay?
Hmm.
Because back when he started, he was such a positive influence, you know, telling kids say their prayers, take your vitamins, that type of thing, you know. Um, and then when that went away, I was like, I don't know, I was kind of jaded, I guess. I was like, Why you got to do that? You know. But I
I
always
think
enjoyed watching him, and I thought he was I thought he was cool. You know, the whole ripping the shirt and the pythons. Whoa, you know, hey brother. But and the feuds he had with Macho Man was fantastic. You know, um, you know, I will say this: there was a person that had a lot of respect for him in the business that I was really shocked to hear about, and that's Andre the Giant. Because if you
hmm,
didn't you slam Andre the Giant unless he let you, plain and
hmm.
simple. Now, folks, if you don't know who Andre the Giant is, the man was 7'4" and over 500 pounds, and he was. I don't think he ever lifted weights, but he was just so naturally freaking country boy strong that you you didn't win. You didn't win unless he was okay with it. Honestly, if he didn't like you, he'd beat the snot out of you. You
Yep.
know, he'd hurt you. Macho Man Randy Savage found that out the hard way. You know, but when he was wrestling um, Hulk Hogan, and he pretty much passed the torch to Hogan, he told Hogan in the ring to slam him because he was ready to. I mean, the man could hardly move, you know, and he was still
At
out there
that point,
trying to
yeah,
do,
yeah.
you know, but it was almost sad to watch him wrestle because he should have retired a long time before he did, you know? And he died not too long after that.
Can I tell you the saddest loss I ever saw Andre the Giant take was when he got choked out by that dude in Princess Bride? I was like,
Oh,
"Get the fuck out of here." That little wimp choking out Andre the Giant, get the fuck out of here. That one pissed me off when I first saw that. I was like, "Man, fuck this movie." Anyway,
and
oh,
that's the thing about Andre the Giant. See, when I first when
yeah.
I was when I was little, and I told you about shaking his hand and all that kind of stuff. But when I got to see him play Bigfoot on the $6 Million Man,
He played Bigfoot, Andre the Giant?
yes. How did you
Oh,
not
I
know
need
that?
to look up I'm looking up this clip and, as soon as we get off this as soon as we get off here, I gotta look this up. Andre the Giant literally played Bigfoot? What?
He played Bigfoot in the TV show $6 Million Man.
Holy shit, and he fought the $6 million man? It was Bigfoot
Yeah,
versus the $6 man with Andre the
yeah,
Giant as Bigfoot?
yeah.
How come no one's ever told me about this before, Tex? Jesus Christ. How come I've never seen this clip before? I'm really? Are you pulling my leg?
No, I'm not. Look it up.
Hold on. I see a 20-second. Please don't tell me. Hold on.
He was in one or two episodes.
Oh, there he is. There he is. He's fighting Lee Majors right now.
Yeah,
Oh, wait. Is that a mask? Is that makeup?
that's makeup.
Oh, it is. Holy shit.
Yeah, but I could remember
You know
seeing
what's
that,
kind of
and because I loved Andre the Giant, I loved wrestling, and I absolutely loved $6 Million Man.
okay.
Okay,
I just realized
and
something,
I was a
Tex.
Bigfoot fan.
I just realized something, Tex. This is gonna blow up. This blows my brain, and I think it's gonna blow your brain. Okay. The other acting appearance that Andre the Giant had, other than Princess Bride, was most famously. Do you remember
Oh man, Dad gummit.
his other famous movie role?
Escapes me.
Dude,
I'm gonna feel
he
stupid when you say
was
it.
the main he was the final villain in Conan the Destroyer, the sequel to Conan the Barbarian. Remember that? With Will
What?
Chamberlain? Yeah,
No, he
that
was not.
awakened god, Dagon. Remember that Dagon, and they bring in
That's
the
right.
horn with Will
That's right. He
Chamberlain?
was Dagon, wasn't he?
And then he comes out as that giant. So what that means is because that Dagon guy was kind of like a Nephilim. So Andre the Giant played a Bigfoot and a Nephilim.
Yeah.
Holy
Not only
shit.
that, and when you watch the episode, you got to watch all the episodes that Andre the Giant's in, or well, actually all the. I think there's 2 episodes that plays Bigfoot, or is Bigfoot related. But I think Andre may have only played in one of them. I'm not real sure, but it it even touches on the woo, and that was in the '70s.
Wait, which one?
The $6 Million Man episode, Bigfoot, even touches on the
Six.
woo.
Dude, I saw it. I looked it up. There's a $6 million man fought Bigfoot, and Bigfoot was played by Andre the Giant, and it's Andre the Giant in makeup as Bigfoot.
Yeah, but
I was
they
like, how
touch
come I
on the woo. They touch on the woo side of Bigfoot in those episodes.
really?
Yeah,
How come more people in the cryptid community don't know about this, Tex? I feel like this is the first time I'm hearing about this.
so
My God,
I'm
look it up, folks. My mind is
I'm full
blown
of
right
all
now. My
kinds
mind is freaking blown. Okay, can I tell you a cool thing? Can I tell you a cool thing that I heard about Hulk Hogan? This was actually before AEW, when Cody was in New Japan. Remember, for a while there, Cody Rhodes was with the Bullet Club.
Yeah.
So while they were as the Bullet Club, and mostly they were competing in like Ring of Honor at the time, they would
Mhm.
do all these like live streams, like these live podcasts, like what we're doing now, just like chat rooms and live streaming as like the Bullet Club, like Kenny, the Bucks, and Cody. And the topic of Hulk Hogan came up. And then Cody was like, you know what? I know all this shit about Hulk Hogan's out there. And, regardless of what you might think of the man, there was one thing that was undeniable about Hogan as the performer was that he was the master of pantomiming, meaning that when he was having an argument with the ref, you could be in the nosebleed section. You can know just by like looking at his body language, you know exactly what he's arguing with the ref about.
That's true.
That was something
That's
that
true.
Hogan could do like no one else.
That is true.
And I was like, huh, I
I
didn't
never
think about
thought
that.
about
But
it, but
yeah,
that is true.
that is true. And you ever watched like some of his like Japan stuff?
I never have.
Like his matches
Never
with
have.
like his matches in like New Japan and like with Inoki? Dude, Hogan when he wrestles in Japan is a very different thing, man. That guy could go. I mean, that guy could go. Like the Hogan most people know of like the WWF Hogan.
Yeah.
He was restricted by the WWF's like style and like you see him as like he only had a few moves, right? He wasn't
Right.
very agile, but when you see his like fucking Japan matches, you're like, holy shit, this is a completely different athlete. This was like a New Japan level match, right?
Huh. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, I mean, he could go. I mean, have you seen like the old school footage of Andre the Giant when he was like actually in his prime, like his physical prime?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Hell, I got to watch him wrestle in his prime.
yeah, that dude could move. I mean, he was an athlete.
Yeah, he was.
Most
And if
people
you look at
remember
him
him
when he
as
was
like the
young,
slow lumbering guy. Yeah.
yeah, find him when he was young, when he was only about 6'9".
Mhm. Okay, let me ask you another name, Tex, while we're at it. Ravishing Rick Rude.
Somebody you love to hate. Somebody you love to hate. Ain't no doubt about
Yeah.
that.
Apparently, like back, like completely different as a person. Like he was like a real country redneck guy,
Yeah.
but he was like, yeah, I just love that character. Okay, okay. How about Arn Anderson?
You know, Very technical. Very
Yeah.
technical guy. One one of the most underappreciated wrestlers that was out there. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. He had his day,
Hmm.
but you look at who he was associated with in the Four Horsemen and stuff like that, and you look at
Yeah.
you know the heights that Ric Flair went to. Unfortunately, Arn didn't go to those heights. He was very very well known. He was a mainstreamer. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I think he was very underappreciated
Who
for what
was
he
your
did.
favorite guy of that era? Of like that, like NWA territories era, like that whole scene? Who's your favorite guy out of all that?
I got. Well, I mean, of course, Kevin Von Erich was a friend. One of my favorites.
Hmm.
Andre the Giant was one. I had a lot of favorites.
Hmm.
Jimmy Flash, Jimmy Flash, Superfly Jimmy Snuka.
Hmm.
I thought he was absolutely amazing when when he was doing his thing.
Do
Of
you
course, I
have any
like
thoughts
Kabuki.
about like the murder accusations?
It wouldn't surprise me none.
But you know about all that, right? With like
Oh
Jimmy
yeah,
Snuka and yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, Somebody that I used to love watching was Maniac Mark Lewin.
Hmm. That one I don't know.
Um, and George the Animal Steel.
I love George the Animal Steel. And speaking of George the
Love that
Animal
guy.
Steel, I believe one of his former students is in the chat right now.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
Who are some of my favorites? You know who I really like back in the day? Ricky Steamboat.
Steamboat was
I love
he's
me.
a legit badass.
I love some
That
Ricky
match
Steamboat.
between him and Ric Flair, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Man,
He had
man, oh
yeah.
man.
That guy was just a dope match machine.
Yeah.
One of
Now, well, I'll
my
tell you
personal
what.
favorites. Oh no, go ahead.
Um, I was like I said, I had a lot of favorites, man. I didn't have just one single favorite. I don't think back then.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever have. I mean, I guess overall I could say the Undertaker, but then I get to thinking about back in the day, and it's like I start thinking about
Okay.
Junkyard Dog and Maniac Mark Lewin and Great Kabuki and you know Bruiser Brody. I mean, there's just so
How
many
about
of them.
this then? How about this then? Who did you hate the most? Kayfabe. Who did you kayfabe the
Oh,
most?
uh, I never did like the whole flamboyant, cocky. I never, and I still don't like that. Um,
Like the Ric Flairs?
I didn't like Rick. Ric Flair was not one of my favorites. He never was.
But he was one of those
I
guys that you like to
respect
get
him.
you enjoyed watching him get his ass beat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I think probably the guy that I did not like the most overall, I mean, all time, man, wow.
$1 Million Man was up there for me. That guy was an asshole. Remember when he did that thing where he had the little kid dribble the basketball 10 times? And then he
Yeah.
kicks the basketball from the kid, and that kid
Yeah.
legitimately goes back to his mom crying, and you're like, "What an asshole."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Alberto Del Rio's an asshole in real life. That's shoot,
Yeah.
can't stand. I'm talking about kayfabe.
Um, man. Um, I hated the Iron Sheik.
That yeah, yeah, yeah.
Couldn't stand the Iron Sheik. Still don't like the Iron Sheik. Um, and Edge, when he was doing that rated R stuff, I didn't like it bad enough. I turned the channel. I mean, it was like, I don't want to watch this crap.
See, I felt differently about Edge. Do you know what made me want to change the channel with Edge? It wasn't the rated R superstar stuff, it was the vampire stuff. When he came out as a vampire, that's when I wanted to change the channel because I was like, okay, you're just insulting our intelligence now. Remember when he had the vampire gimmick?
I do not.
No,
He wasn't with. Is
the
that
Brood
was he with
with
Vampiro?
Gangrel. No,
Yeah.
with Gangrel, and they came out as vampires, like legitimately.
See, I
As
don't
they
remember
had like
him being a
fangs and
part of that, but I
everything.
remember Gangrel.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, that's when I wanted to turn Edge off. Respect him as a performer and as a man, but it was just that angle, you know. It was just the angle. It's not the man. You cannot blame Adam Copeland for that. That was all on Vince
Yeah.
McMahon and probably Vince Russo.
I never was a fan. I respected him a lot because of what he did, but I never was a real big fan of Eddie Guerrero.
You know what? I was kind of the same way about him. Like I
I mean, the
respected
guy
him as a
could go.
performer.
He could go,
Yeah.
but
But I think what it was though was because he was such an asshole as a heel that you just didn't want to like him.
yeah.
He was so good at
Well,
playing
and
an
see,
asshole
you know what
Mexican.
I didn't like about it? Going right back to the whole Hulk Hogan thing and me being the
Yeah.
dad coming out at me and the
Mhm.
influence on the kids, the whole light, cheat, and steal thing.
Hmm.
You know, it's like I don't like the ones that come out as a pimp. Big Papa, whatever his name was,
Oh,
and
the Godfather?
yeah, the Godfather. I didn't like the Godfather at
Dude,
all.
but that guy had so many gimmicks.
Oh, I
If you
know,
look at all
I
the
know.
different gimmicks he's had, you're like, wow, you've had a lot of gimmicks.
Well, I'll tell you what one of my favorites was Kamala, the Ugandan giant.
Oh yeah, I remember him slapping his belly. Yeah, and then you learn about the actual man. And you read about like what a nice guy he was in real
Yeah,
life. You can't help but like that
yep,
guy. Um, oh yeah, I remember Godfather was also Papa Shango at one point. Remember that the
yeah,
voodoo
yeah.
guy? Yeah.
Oh, talk about voodoo guys. The Boogeyman.
Oh yeah, the guy who would literally eat worms.
Yeah, he'd eat worms.
Yeah, yeah.
I was always a big fan of Jake the Snake Roberts too.
Me too. I like Jake the Snake Roberts. My favorite guy from that era was probably Roddy Piper.
Loved me some Roddy Piper.
He was
Loved
my
me some
guy.
Roddy Piper.
He was my guy. Yeah. Um, one of the. I mean, I was as a kid, I was a big Warrior fan. You know, later on, you learn about the kind of guy
Yeah,
Warrior was.
yeah.
But at the
I was
time,
the same way.
I mean, I actually liked his promos. It was very surreal and cerebral.
Yeah, he didn't make a lick of
I
sense
kind of
of
get his
anything he
gimmick.
said.
If you go back and watch it, I kind of get what he was doing. What he was doing was basically he was narrating himself as Conan the Barbarian, and he's like
Yeah,
thinking of himself as Robert E. Howard. He's like, I
yeah,
am descended from the gods, shit like that.
yeah.
You know,
I mean,
like if you go back and listen,
but his
Derek
promos
Galloway
make
was a warrior
zero
boy.
sense.
But
Zero
you
sense.
could tell underneath that was like a smart, sensible man. He was an
Oh,
intelligent
Terry
guy.
Funk.
You do
Oh
have to give him
yes,
that.
Terry
Yeah,
Funk, man. God, I hated it when he died. Man,
that bummed me out. That bummed me out.
talk about a badass. Oh my gosh. But I will tell you, I respect Undertaker a lot. Okay. But I think there's one guy that I probably like more than Undertaker. Character, man, the whole 9 yards. Mick Foley.
Yeah. Everyone, there's not a single person who has anything bad to say about that guy.
Nope.
Not a single person in the industry.
And
Like
the guy
everyone
writes
respects the
children's
shit out of
books.
him. Yeah. Jeff Hardy, I've got some thoughts about him. I'm kind of, I respect his body of work, but then you can only screw up so many times, dude. Come on, man. And be
I
given
never
so
was
many
a
opportunities.
real big fan of Jeff or Matt or the Hardy brothers. I mean, they did some phenomenal stuff before everybody started doing it, you know.
Hmm.
But
What favorite tag team?
favorite tag team, mm, the Brothers of Destruction.
Mine was the Dudleys. I was big into the Dudleys. Yep, Mike
I,
Boswell knows Dudley Boy. I was a hardcore Dudley Boys fan. Man, I love me some Dudley Boys.
I liked Demolition. I liked
I love Demolition.
the Road Warriors. You know, um,
The Rockers. Remember Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty?
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, somebody that I really wanted to like. I really wanted to get behind him because he was from Texas, and I just can't stand the son of a bitch. That is, and I just had his name in my head, and I just went blank. Damn, I'm having a lot of senior moments.
Are you talking about
Um,
JBL?
yes,
JBL.
yep.
Yep.
I just don't like him.
Well, you
Just
hear about the
don't like him.
stories, the shoot stories about what a bully he is backstage, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you just hear about him being an asshole, and you're like, okay, guess that guy's an asshole.
And I do not like. And I know I heard Randy talking about this guy and how he liked him for some reason. I don't remember what it was, and I can't stand him. And that's New Jack. I have no respect for that man.
I love that man. What are you talking about?
I have no
I don't
respect.
idolize him, but
None.
okay, I know he's done what he's done. He's not a
Yeah.
he's not a nice person.
No, he's not. He's a
However,
piece of shit.
yeah. However, he gave, in my opinion, one of the greatest wrestling promos ever given. And to me, it was like a masterpiece. Like, this is what a wrestling promo should be. It's not, to me, not only the greatest wrestling promo ever, it's the greatest speech probably ever given by a human being. And that's when he arrived at Smoky Mountain to challenge the Midnight Express, right? And he came out as like these ghetto boys with Mustafa Ali, comes out to the ring with Jim Ross. I'll send you the clip later. And the reason why it's one of the greatest speeches of all time, he managed to piss off the NAACP and the KKK at the exact same time.
Oh, see, I remember
What
y'all
human
talking about
beings?
that,
Yeah,
but I just
it's a
don't.
genius speech.
I don't like people that's just an asshole for the sake of being an asshole.
Yeah, that's true. That being said, that whole what was that incident? Well, there were several incidents with him that should not have happened for sure.
Mike Bothell's got a pretty good comment.
Yeah, I'm gonna Donnie,
Hey,
what's your
Sapphire
opinion on a
Elf.
WWE lying about attendance at pay-per-views because they didn't sell that many tickets? AEW does the same thing though, to be fair.
They all do the same thing.
But wanted
They
to show the
all,
viewers as yeah, you know what that is? It's called being a carny.
yeah.
It's the carny life. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen
Anyway,
Sapphire Elf in one of our chats.
hey there, Sapphire Elf. Yeah, he's a friend of mine from a previous show I was on. Hey there, dude. What's up? Anyway, I think we've gone about long enough from here. Oh yeah, before we go, um, Tex, I'm gonna leave you with a little bit of a nugget of fun thing to think about. Okay,
All
you
right.
ever trace the history of pro wrestling, the original history where
Oh
it
yeah.
originally came from?
Oh yeah.
So you know about its origins, right?
Uh huh. If you well,
Okay,
if we're talking about the same thing, because when they
yeah,
used to wrestle, there was no time limits.
Hmm.
And I mean, it was brutal.
Hmm.
It was brutal.
Do you
I mean,
remember
the
like
matches,
when?
the matches would last sometimes hours if we're talking
Well,
about the
yeah,
same thing.
yeah. Well, I was referring back to like the carnival days, like when back in like the
Mm,
30s and the 20s. You know, when they would have like these traveling carnivals, and there'd be a wrestling show, and then like the town would show up, and then you'd have like a wrestler, and then just random ass dudes would just come out from the crowd,
yeah.
and then the guy would just spank them, and then just move on, and then
Well,
eventually they kind of figured out if we did, yeah,
they kind of touched on that in the Spider-Man movie when when they were when Spider-Man wrestled
yeah,
um,
Randy Savage.
Randy Savage, because it was
Well,
like
I mean,
you
that's
can
what
stay in
they
the
were.
ring for 3 minutes or whatever. That's the kind
Yeah.
of stuff they used to do.
Well, I mean, that was like, yeah, the wrestling from like the early 1900s, late 1800s. That's the kind of wrestling they did, right?
Right.
So those like wrestlers, do you know what style of wrestling they actually practice?
I thought it was Greco.
No, it was
No.
English catch wrestling.
Ah.
That's where pro wrestling comes from, English catch wrestling, right? So English catch wrestling, what it is, it's basically like a folk style wrestling where it's like freestyle wrestling, you know, with what we have with like the NCAA, right? But it also involves submission holds.
Mm.
That's all it is. It's freestyle wrestling, but you can also tap the guy out because in our style of wrestling, right, it's only pinning the guy. There's no tapping people out. But
That's
that's
pretty cool.
what English catch wrestling is.
Derek Galloway. Now, this is the second time I've seen this in about the last week or so.
What?
That Putin went into cardiac arrest 2 days ago, confirmed.
Yeah, I've been hearing that.
I've
I've been
seen
hearing that.
absolutely nothing about it, and I looked for it. I couldn't find anything about
I've been hearing it's YouTube rumors for now.
it. Oh,
There's like, there's also conspiracy theories about his like body doubles, which do have legs. I've seen some of the photos, and yeah, some of the details about some of the features are interesting. So I'm not saying that I don't take it seriously, but yeah, there have been rumors flying around. But oh, anyway, real quick, Tex, let me explain where English catch wrestling actually comes from, right? English catch wrestling comes from medieval style of combat. So you know how
really?
back in the day when people in medieval times, right, they would wear like the knight's armor,
Yeah.
right? And they would come out there with their shields and their swords and they would fight each other, right? Here's a question. How in the fuck are you supposed to get the guy if you got a sword and the other guy's got armor? But then you got armor and then he's got a sword. You're just whacking each other and not doing anything, right? So they had
Huh.
all these they had all these combat manuals, these military manuals that they found, and they would show like actual diagrams of what those fights actually look like. And what it boiled down to, if you're both all up in armor like that, they would just tackle each other, grapple each other, and try to like stick a knife into like try to like rip off the guy's piece right there and stick a knife in. That's where English catch wrestling developed. And that was the origin. That was the ancestor of pro wrestling.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I see. I learn something new every day. I talked to you about Andre the
Yeah.
Giant being Bigfoot, and you taught me about the beginnings of pro wrestling.
Well, we also together figured out that Andre the Giant played a Bigfoot and a Nephilim.
Yes,
And
we
he will
did.
be the only man in existence in history who will ever have that distinction.
That is true. That is true. Another
So,
first, and another thing on his he can put on his trophy. I get well, he can't put shit on his trophies on his trophy wall now. But, there was
what?
a story about real quick. There was a story about
All right.
Andre the Giant. I love this story. He was in France, which is where he's from, and he went into a bar and he's sitting there, and these two guys are just needling him and needling him and needling him and it took a lot to get the man angry. From everything I've heard, it took a lot to get the man angry. But when he did, you didn't want to be anywhere. You want to be on the bad end of the stick. And oh, that's cool, Michael. Michael Haywood. Andre had a ranch about 9 miles. I think that's where he died, wasn't it? But so these guys won't leave him alone, won't leave him alone, won't leave him alone. So he calls their bluff. And from what I remember, he gets up, they run out of the bar. He goes outside, they jump in their car. What's he do? Oh, he just flips the car over.
Yeah. Like literally, like the Hulk flipped it over.
Yeah. Just took it, flipped it over.
And he's not even the one who's got the most fucked up stories about him of all the wrestlers.
Oh,
Who was the one they
no,
said was
not
the
at all.
toughest of the toughest? There was one that was even more ridiculous in terms of like just like the scariest human, but also is also a wrestler. He was that Samoan guy. I
Dr.
forgot
Death?
his name. No, started with an H. Samoan dude. Shit, what
Oh,
was his name?
Haku.
Haku. The Haku
That
stories,
guy.
those are fucked
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
Haku.
rearranged a lot of people's faces in ball.
There were some bar stories that some wrestlers told in shoot interviews where you're like, oh
Yeah.
my God. I think
They didn't
even
want to be anywhere around when he went
even
off.
Andre got nervous around Haku. That was the one guy
He was
everyone
just
was like,
nuts.
you don't want to fuck with.
He was just nuts. He was big enough to back it up.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we'll leave it at here. We've gone on for about an hour 20. I think we've got places to be. So yeah, folks, thanks for hanging out. And Tex, any final thoughts or any last things you wanted to just bid to the crowd?
One, y'all be sure and subscribe to Johnny Show Says Stuff. Two, go subscribe to Texas Front Porch. Three, go subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Four, go subscribe to Blondes and Booze. And five, go over and visit and subscribe to I do that every time. Midwest Night Watchers.
Tex, someone asked us a question. I'll let you address that before we go because someone's asking us. Donnie and Tex, do you think it was right or wrong what the WWE did to Chris Benoit, considering everything he accomplished in his career? Do you want to do that or?
What he did was absolutely horrible. It was thought out. It was planned. It was premeditated. That's hard to come back from. That's hard to get any forgiveness from. I mean,
I think
I know the guy wasn't right. I mean, he had the brain of a 90-year-old man when they looked at it. But
I think the WWE had to do what the WWE had to do, and I think whatever spirit of Chris Benoit would have understood. So I don't even think Chris Benoit would have agreed to that either. And
there was a lot of people that said before that happened that he wasn't right. A lot of his friends.
Honestly, personally, for me, my honest, legitimate personal opinion was that he was possessed. And I think
that is not out of the realm of possibility.
I think his CTE and his steroid abuse and everything else and his grief over Eddie Guerrero opened him up so vulnerable for possession. That's my theory.
I think you may be on
the Bibles.
Yeah.
I think that's something we got to discuss further. Something to consider.
See, that's something you could come on Infamous Minds and we could talk about.
We're gonna have to talk about that one. This is a theory I've been working on for years, considering everything I know. Anyway, folks, we'll get back to you on that, and there will be some more. It's not going to be every episode. It's going to be about wrestling, but every now and then, I do like to touch up with my friends who are in the paranormal field, who I also notice. Oh my God, we also happen to be wrestling fans. Let's explore this. And this channel will be the avenue for that for now. So hope you all enjoyed, and good night, folks.